Good. Now what is it you're wanting? Right here.
Greetings, Abraham. After all these years of listening to you and connecting with you, it's delicious to be in the same physical space with you. I'm wanting to talk some more about children and parenting. It's an interesting topic to me. I have 2 young boys. They have me, actually. The question of allowing children being who they are. Frequently I come up with a behavior of theirs that, well, I believe, for example, that say it's not what you eat, it's not what goes in your mouth, what comes out of your heart. Still, my wanting of them to do certain things that I believe, how can I say this, conflicting beliefs between what I think they should do and yet wanting them to allow what they feel like they need to do. Issues come up.
Give us an example of something that either happens often or when it happens it's so loud that it's dominant. In other words, give us an example of something that they want to do that you don't want them to do.
They want to eat a lot of candy. I want them to eat salad. I'm not wanting to say, candy is bad, candy will make you sick. And yet I know that I have this belief that it is better to eat this salad than this candy.
All right, so let's say that for whatever reason, you do not have to justify your desire for them to do what you feel is more appropriate. Let's say that you want very much for them to eat salad. Do you give any thought to their thriving? Do you give any thought to their attracting and craving what is good for them? Or do you do like most physical beings and just respond to what you don't want when it's in your face?
Depends on what time of the day it is.
You see, what happens to most of you is that because you're action-oriented, you have developed patterns of sort of responding to what happens. So this happens that you don't want and you respond to it, and then that happens that you don't really want and you respond to it. So you sort of feel like things outside of you are controlling your life experience. But when you start realizing that, as our friends are discovering, that as you flow your energy in advance, that then circumstances and events begin to conform to that, then you find yourself wanting to lie in your bed at night and for 5 or 10 minutes prior to going to sleep, flowing energy toward these magnificent children, seeing them strong and vital and healthy and receiving impulses from their own inner knowing of that which is most appropriate for them. You see what happens, and let us start at a sort of beginning place here. This will help you a great deal. All of you, right before you emerged into these bodies, were standing, if you will excuse the physical terminology in a non-physical environment, you were vibrating in a place of pure positive energy, liquid love. Those of you who have had or heard those trying to describe near-death experiences, it is a feeling of well-being, and you want to go to it. And that's where you were right before you emerged into these bodies. And that's where your inner being, who is the greater part of you, still vibrates pure positive energy. Now, in the moment that a part of that energy was projected into your body, and you donned this perspective of thinking that the moon has light bulbs in it, in other words, as you donned this physical perspective that is different from the non-physical perspective, right away you found yourself instantly surrounded by a vibration of guardedness and lackfulness and vulnerability. And then most of you spend the rest of your lives trying to fill that void. Sometimes you eat something. Sometimes you want to drink alcohol or use drugs. Or sometimes you want to buy one more thing and bring it home. Or sometimes you want to seek approval from others. In other words, almost all behavior that you see offered from almost all physical beings is offered in an attempt to fill that void. And the only way the void can be filled is with the presence of inner being. It's the non-physical energy that you are seeking. So let's say you see them wanting candy, and and you recognize that they're wanting the candy because it is something that is soothing. It's something that tastes good. They're wanting to feel better. That's why they're wanting the candy. And they've discovered, as most of you have, when you eat something that tastes good, that for the moment of eating it, it may very well distract you from other things that you are not wanting. And so as they are wanting the candy, and you are recognizing that what they're really wanting to do is fill a void. And what that void is that they're wanting to fill is the absence of their inner being, which maybe they had a little struggle at school, maybe you're mad at them, maybe they're squabbling with each other. In other words, there are a lot of influences. Watching the violence on television will take even a young child from the center of who he is. So as you see them wanting something, rather than dealing with the issue, step back into it deeper and acknowledge that these children are wanting to feel the fullness of their inner being within them, and then flow energy toward that. And rather than resisting them having the candy, instead let them have the candy for that moment with the intent of it helping them to feel better. And as you are letting them have it, talk to them about how candy does taste good and how you can understand that they would want a little bit of it. You see, the more you say no to something, the more they want it. The more they want to express to you their freedom. And when you say no to them about anything, even if it is for their own well-being, what rises within them is that strong desire to be free. And that is the most central desire that is within all of you. Most of you it has been pretty well hammered out of. In other words, your parents did a good job, your teachers did a good job, the society and its expectations, until most of you are very reluctant to be really as weird and wonderful as you really are. You are more conformists, you see. So then, and here is another part about this that will help you. Also, most of you, because you're action-oriented, think that you're making all of your headway right there in the moment as you're dealing with it. And so you think that it all has to happen right then. I'm either going to give them the candy or I'm not going to give them the candy, but this is where the progress is made. Well, at a time when they're wanting something that you don't want them to have and there's resistance involved, we promise you no headway is being made. So whether you give it to them or whether you don't right then and there, it doesn't really matter. What matters then is that after the fact, once you've said, I don't want my kids to eat too much junk food or candy, what is it that I do want? I want them to gravitate toward things that will help them to be healthy. Why? Because I want them to be healthy. Why? Because it is delicious to live in a healthy body. Why do I want them to have a delicious experience? Because that is what they've intended. That's who they are. Can you feel how you've come full circle and now you are talking about what you do want? And so the frustration relative to the candy is no longer there. And we promise you that when your frustration and pushing against that episode is not so strong as it is now, their asking for it will not be nearly as strong either. Because a lot of what is evoking from them the desire for it is your sort of putting a beacon light on it and saying, no, you can't have that. They're like the beasts of the universe, and they're also like the universe at large. They don't understand the difference between yes and no. Now, you keep wanting to hammer it into them, but their natural instinct is not to understand the difference. Have you ever said to your children, don't do that? And you find them finding all sorts of creative ways to figure out how to do it, or at least to understand what it is about it that they're not supposed to do? Esther and Jerry were in a little restaurant yesterday in the little town where they live, and Esther, she's very observant. Some would call it an eavesdropper. And she's sort of listening to what's happening with this little family sitting behind. And the parents are talking about this child without wanting him to know they're talking about him, but he knows that they're talking about him, and he is saying, what? And they're saying, never mind. Well, he could not leave it alone. Once he recognized that there was something that they did not want him to hear, he could not stop probing about it. He really wanted to know what it was, you see. So after the fact is a much better time to deal with it. In other words, feel the negative emotion in the moment and make a decision that you're going to resolve this. And in the privacy of your own mind, at a time when you're not interacting with them and at a time when the issue is not right there, flow energy toward them thriving. Flow energy toward their magnificent bodies. Flow energy toward them being connected to their own guidance. Flow energy toward knowing that you don't have to be their watchdog. that they have an inner being within them that will do just fine. A young mother asked us not long ago, she said, Abraham, I want so much for my children to grow up connected and to have a delicious physical experience. And yet there are things that I worry about. She said, how can I find the balance between allowing them their freedom without allowing them so much freedom that they choose something detrimental? And we say, if you can remember first and foremost that your child has within him an inner being of pure positive energy, and that if you will trust his connection to that, he will be guided appropriately. And that the predominant factor that disconnects the child is the parent saying, no, no, look out, be careful, watch out. And so, if a child is left to his own natural connection, he could walk on top of a 10-story building right along the ledge and be perfectly coordinated, even though he is a little toddler. Unless his mother is screeching at him, watch out, be careful, and manages to be the catalyst that disconnects him, then you've got to be there. And that is what you're trying to figure out. How can I be the catalyst to their connection so that their own guidance system can keep them in the place they want to be? And once you discover it, you're going to feel so much liberation. It is such a delicious feeling of freedom to one day look at your children and say, you're going to be just fine. I don't have to worry about you anymore. All is well with you. You're smart. You're connected. You're guided. Everything's going to be just fine with you. So get out there and have as much experience as you want, even if it's something that I would not choose for you. And trust that which comes forth from within you. See? Wanting something more specific?
Well, that was exactly the question, the example of the mothers. Wanting them to be connected and walking that line between allowing them their freedom to be their magnificent selves, and then where's my bro in guiding them?
So how will you know when your dominant intent is so well placed, and it is, you speak it and we have spoken it here exactly as you are vibrating it. When your dominant intent is for them to connect and thrive and prosper, do you understand that any time you're feeling negative emotion relative to something that they are doing, that you are in that moment flowing energy in the exact opposition of the desire that we have just stated? So next time you feel negative emotion, what is the order of business? Is it to monitor their behavior, or is it to realign your energy? You see, you can't give to anybody something that you do not have. And so if you are wanting them to be connected so that they can be guided, that it is not your first order of business to be connected, can you give to somebody else something that you do not have? A very good thing for a parent to do, a very good process is this. Next time you feel yourself aggravated, angry, disconnected, relative to something they're doing, or relative to anything that they are witnessing, stop and say, I'm feeling really rotten right here. I've got myself in a really angry place. If you'll excuse me for a little bit, I'm going to go off and make a list of what I want and why I want it. And when I get feeling better, I'll be back. Then go off. Go to the other room. It only takes 2 or 3 minutes. Talk about what, and if you want to, pinpoint that subject right then and there. What is it that I want? Why do I want it? Until you feel your energy shift. And when you come back in, it will be obvious to these little creatures, because they are so much pure positive energy, that you are vibrating in a different place. And then, sometime before too long, when they are feeling negative emotion, they will remember. And they will say, what is it you're doing there? If you can help them know that nothing is more important than that they feel good, and we promise you, their relationship and harmony with you is much more of a central issue of feeling good than whether or not they have that candy. But you must help them find that place, you see. You're wanting to teach them that the way they feel is the indicator of how they're flowing energy. But you must know it first, and you do know it much of the time. But it's just this dilemma, isn't it, between what sort of action do I take? And we say, think how much more simple it is to just ask how I'm flowing energy, and then do anything and everything you can do to get your energy flowing in a way that you feel good, and then any action that you take will be appropriate. But if you do not take the time to transmute your energy, and in your state of aggravation or anger, you take your action, then any action that you offer is counterproductive.